I am unashamed. What about you?
I give you just a microscopic speck of the knowledge of chickens that I ingested last night. Not an actual chicken.
No, I love your argument. It needs to be fine tuned, and that's what I want to help with. And I haven't even heard the conclusion yet because we didn't give that in the last podcast.
Well, exactly. And I told you I was giving a microscopic speck, but I'm just telling you that when Jesus said before that rooster crows, which look, even religious groups through the years, they put roosters, like these little ornaments, on top of church buildings. I saw pictures of it.
I've seen that. I've actually seen that.
Whoa. Why? Why'd they do that?
Because of this moment.
No, because they're like, well, if Jesus, the creator of the universe, is using an illustration of something profound is fixing to happen in your life when that rooster crows and the results of denying Jesus. And they also use it as a sign of grace. You know why? Because eventually, Peter realizing that, it led him to repent and say, what am I doing? He remembered that he didn't trust the Lord in that. So people use that as symbols, but just think of all the chicken idioms that we use. Just start listening to them in everyday life. Look, even let's just take an airplane. What's it called when the captain and the co-captain, where do they go to fly the plane?
The cockpit.
Where'd they get that?
From chickens.
Look it up. From chickens fighting. And we literally named the front end of the plane after that.
Yeah.
Maddie's looking like she doesn't believe me. Look it up. I already have. That is where the name come from.
And
Look, you know who invented the omelet? Who invented the omelet? The Romans.
I had one this morning. They're so good.
Yeah. Look, do you know who had the
Rome.
the largest incubation process the world has ever known for chicken eggs?
The Romans?
Egyptians.
The Egyptians?
Ooh.
Oh yeah, look it up. Oh, it's fascinating. And so think about all the things we say. Don't count your
chickens before they hatch.
Which came first, the chicken or the egg? But think about it.
But Al, you brought that up last time, but that's an incorrect statement.
That's
on
the question that's always asked.
Look, on both sides of the argument, even in the non-believers, the people that don't believe in God, they have to say the chicken came first because of the eggshell is what I was trying to propose to you. The actual problem with this whole evolutionary theory without God is not the chicken, which I do make a valid point, and it's done for humorous purposes. I mean, it does take a lot of faith to believe, after all, if the world, I don't have a problem saying the world is 4.5 billion years old. I just think, well, if God wanted to make it old from the start, he did.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. True. I'm saying that's a possibility.
My point was evolution is one thing. Big Bang cosmology is another thing. And I actually pulled this book off my shelf.
Oh, well, you can read it, but I'm saying those two camps usually ride saddle to saddle.
Well, so I read this book years ago. This is by Stephen Hawking, who is now dead, but he was a brilliant physicist. And I really got into this idea of the origins of the universe. And so this is kind of the model of physics that Stephen Hawking, which he was very instrumental in helping develop the theory of the Big Bang, which I'd say it's more than a theory. I mean, there's quite a bit of scientific evidence for it, which is where we kind of get the idea, one of the ways we get the idea that the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, the universe is 14.5 roughly. But he says in the book, which I thought was interesting, he gets through the whole thing and he's like here's what we've determined through our physics is that the universe has a beginning. Like we know this now, that the time itself has a beginning. That's the name of the book, The Brief History of Time, or A Brief History of Time. Time has a beginning. And then he says something that's so profound to me. He basically says that that people don't like that. idea, because if that's true, his words, it smacks of divine intervention. Mm-hmm. A lot of other Christian apologists would say not only does it smack of divine intervention, if the universe has a beginning, if time has a beginning, then the conclusion that there's a God is absolutely unavoidable at that point. And he kind of recognizes that in the book. He says the Catholic Church went on to endorse the Big Bang Theory in like 1951 because they said this is in line with Scripture. This actually proves that what we've been saying all along, that the universe came into being out of nothing. And you read Genesis chapter 1, which says that, right? In the beginning was God. God created the heavens and the earth. And that word create, that word, that Hebrew word, it's a word called bahra, which means to create out of nothing.
Yeah.
Meaning there's nothing exists, and then boom, all of a sudden something exists. Well, that's what they've discovered in this model of physics. And so then he goes on to say the goal of modern physics, therefore, is to disprove what we've already proven, because we know that God's not there. So we got to get out of this model because we don't like that idea that God's there. So my point is that like that is probably, that can be true, that the Big Bang Theory can be true, and then at the same time, God especially makes humans, and maybe Darwinian evolution is not true.
And the animal kingdom. And
well,
all
that was a real interesting point. Did he say anything about there where the chickens, why they made it?
Nothing about
Never
the
said about the chickens.
Well, then he should be discounted. He should be
Yeah.
discounted for that alone. Because we have to deal with that. What I'm saying is very simple. The fact that the creator of the universe in human form acknowledged that there would be a rooster crowing, I believe he created that rooster. And I believe that his divine intervention carried that chicken through so we could have a chicken place every 40 yards and supply the earth's food system. But it makes no sense when you take God out of the equation because of the quote concerning the egg shell that I am fixing to read. Because, okay, the red jungle fowl, they came from T-Rex. They were a cousin of the T-Rex. And, you know, all this, you can try to trace it back because we found a few feathers. And look, even what I found, and the reason I've been enamored always with the chickens, and I bring it up, because it's natural comedy. Those 6 hours, you said, why would you do that? Because I laughed. I laughed till I cried reading this nonsense. It was the most funny. If you want to laugh, forget comedians, forget that. Just go read about what unbelievers say how a chicken got here. It is hilarious. Because look, they start defending how tough this red jungle fowl could be. Now, even though they seem kind of dainty and they peck around in the dirt and they can't fly, you know, they can flutter up in a tree. We just know they had to have some extra amount of strength because they survived. Well, I found that hilarious. I'm like, are you defending the prowess of a chicken? Oh, they spurs, and they use cockfighting as an example. I mean, these are ferocious characters, you know, in the wild.
Yeah.
Really? I mean, if I'm in the wild in Asia and here comes a red jungle fowl, trust me, I'm not running unless I'm running toward it and I'm going to have me a nice lunch.
Now, if his cousin T-Rex shows up, you might run, right?
Well, no, then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that's what you used to be. And let me get this right. You survived because you're tougher and stronger. But that T-Rex, oh, no. Here's what I found fascinating now, before I read this quote. At the end of the day, they're like the only modern dinosaurs that exist, because they believe more of them than not believe that we have pictures of modern dinosaurs, and I'll name you 3. You ready for them?
I'm ready.
You think you can guess what they are?
I think I can guess one.
I would guess a turtle.
I was going to say the loggerhead turtle.
No turtle. They weren't dinosaurs. Sorry.
All right, guys, interest rates, they're still high right now, and I know that can make, you know, maybe you're refinancing or trying to purchase a home, and that can make that feel out of reach. But markets can shift very quickly, and when they do, I want you to be ready to be in the strike zone. You say, well, what's the strike zone, Zach? Well, it's the sweet spot when the rates dip just enough for you to meet your target goal, but it doesn't last long a lot of times. They'll dip in and out. And I want to make sure that you're ready to strike first and save big. So at Sierra Pacific Mortgage, Andrew and Todd and their team, by the way, these guys can get you set up and they can keep you informed. So when we enter the strike zone, you can strike first. With 40 years of experience, they really are the experts. They make it easy because they keep everything in-house. So this is what you need to do. You need to get pre-qualified today. Just get it out of the way. Be ready to strike when the market's drop. If you're looking for a home anytime in the near future, go ahead and visit andrewandtodd.com. Do it now. Get a priority spot in the front of the line before the rest of the herd jumps in. And when the market enters the strike zone, you'll strike first and save big. Look, it's very important when you're making some of the most important financial decisions of your life to work with someone that you trust, someone that shares your values. So call Andrew Del Rey and Todd Avakian, the guys I trust, so they can help you too. Call 888-888-1172. That's 888-888-1172, or visit andrewandtodd.com. That's andrewandtodd.com. Alligators?
Crocodile?
Nope,
Yeah.
that's what I would have thought. I was shocked when that wasn't on the list. Nope.
Yeah.
Because their mode of explaining this won't allow them to be the dinosaurs. No, that had nothing to do with dinosaurs.
Okay.
I'll give you 3. Chickens, you should have guessed that one.
Yeah, I should.
Pigeons and ducks. That's my phone going off. Somebody is wanting some chickens.
Chickens, pigeons, and ducks.
They're the modern dinosaurs. That's where hilarious.
So think about what.
Look,
so
y'all think I'm making this stuff up. Look this nonsense up. Devote your life, and they're like, they are the pictures of what the dinosaurs used to be, and I'm like, this is nonsense.
Well, that makes August 31st all the more impressive, because now we're actually honoring not the duck commander, we are honoring the dinosaur commander.
Dinosaur commander.
It's just
the
crazy
dinosaur
to me.
commander.
They had ducks as the modern. These are the evidences that there were dinosaurs. I know it doesn't make sense to you right now, but if you go look that up, there was an awesome video that I watched. Only one out of all of them I watched. Some scientist from England had a why did the chicken cross the road? And it's
there's another saying. Yeah.
There you go. The history, and he's the one I got that line where he said, so I guess T-Rex tastes like chicken. That was the last thing he said.
That's funny.
Which was hilarious. He wasn't trying to be funny. I laughed the entire time. It was hilarious.
That's why you liked him. You found another unintentionally funny person.
Yeah, well, he was halfway honest about it. And he's the one that came up. That's where I got the things about Egypt and the incubators and the Romans doing the omelets and the churches with the roosters on the top. Because he infused the religious world. He used that term. I mean, he's like, there has to be some component there to all this. It doesn't make sense. I mean, he just had enough brain power to laugh at himself and say, wait a minute. Something had to happen. And he literally brought up the point in John 13 where Jesus brought up the rooster crowing. He found that fascinating. Which so do I. Oh, yeah, that's why I liked it. So look that up. So I want to read this. So I asked this question concerning the shell, because that's where the weak link is. Get it? And you got to remember, Christians, he acknowledged too that they took over the chicken as created by God with the Easter eggs and the resurrection. What do we do every Easter? Why are we painting up eggs? Why do we do that? Y'all tell me.
I would assume it'd have to be about something about the tomb, breaking out of the tomb.
Life from the tomb, that's what I would say.
Yes,
again.
New creation.
Yeah.
New creation, the resurrection. And we use chicken eggs. You know why they chose the chicken egg? Because of what I'm fixed to read. All right. Now look. I gave a worldly question, no Christianity attached to this whatsoever. I just did a simple Google search and said, how did chickens evolve? And I scrolled down through all the nonsensical ones to find this. As wild chickens gradually evolved from their ancestors over millions of years, we've already gone through that with the dinosaurs and all that, there must have been a moment. Now, I want to read this very carefully. There must have been a moment when a bird that was not quite a chicken laid an egg. containing a mutated embryo that hatched into the first chicken. The mutant hatchling from the not yet now chicken egg. I kid you not. The mutant hatchling from the not yet now chicken egg represented a new creation. I have that on my computer in a non-spiritual search.
Wow.
Zach, that has got to be your lead on your next podcast, Jason.
I mean, that's got to be
you wanted to argue with me about a chicken.
And you gave me the greatest plug for my podcast that you could have ever constructed.
Isn't it fascinating that after all the smoke cleared on all this nonsense about a chicken, somebody finally ponied up and said, you know what? It was just a new creation. It just came out of nowhere. Because they can't explain how that shell became hard over millions of years.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I shouldn't have challenged you.
Would have
that
survived during that. It wasn't the chicken that was the problem. It was the shell. Because God made that shell so complex that there is absolutely no answer whatsoever for how that could have happened to sustain their species. There's no reasonable explanation.
Yeah.
So that's my argument, and that's why I know his point wasn't about consider the chicken. But by bringing it up and you analyze something that he created as a creature with all the colors, because look, there's 162 different kinds of chickens, and if you lined them all up and just looked at each one and had a chicken show, which I would encourage someone to do this somewhere on this planet. You would conclude that there must be a divine creator.
Yes.
No way did all of that in the last 8,000 years happen just because of domestication.
No, sorry.
No, there was a sophistication to the domestication, and it's called God Almighty. And
you know what I love? You know what I love about this story too, and how it relates to John 13. When at our last podcast, you had mentioned the idea of when Peter when Peter basically said in John 13, 37, 38, he told Jesus, I'm going with you. I mean, I'm ready to roll. I'll lay down my life for you. And Jesus answered him, will you really? And you brought this up. And so I'm just kind of reiterating this. He said, will you really lay down your life for me? You going to do that? Are you sure? Truly, I say to you, the rooster will not crow 3 times. The rooster will not crow until you've denied me 3 times. And so that's how this whole chicken story started. But I just thought of something. I pulled up this verse at the end of John because Peter is saying, I will die for you.
And he's going to, by the way.
And he's going to. So if you read at the end of the book of John, this is post-resurrection of Jesus. Think about how fascinating this is, particularly in light of what you just said about a new creation. And he says this is where Jesus is post-resurrected Jesus is having an interaction with Peter after all of everything that happened, after the denial of Christ that happened 3 times and all that.
And we actually know how long it is. I mean, it's close in proximity. I mean, it's somewhere within a 6-week time frame this happened. So
because we know that Christ appeared for 40 days.
40 days,
so,
and then he left, right? So this is pretty quick.
So interestingly enough, the first time Peter tells Jesus, "Hey, I'll die for you," and Jesus is like, "Really?" But in this, at the end of it, when I think new creation here, it's Jesus actually telling Peter, "Hey, you're going to die for me." And this is what it says: "Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted. But when you are old," and this makes me want to tear up just reading this, "you will stretch out your hands, and another will dress you and carry you where you do not want to go. This he said to show by what kind of death he was to glorify God. And after saying this, he said to him, 'Follow me.'" And I thought, man, you want to talk about new creation. You want to talk about transformation. Think about the Peter that was in this moment denying Christ 3 times, thinking that he would die for him, but he would eventually, but not in that state he wouldn't. In that state he was going to betray Jesus and he was going to deny him 3 times. But after the resurrection, after the new creation, after what Jason just talked about, that egg represents, after that happened, Peter has another encounter with Jesus now where Jesus tells him, now you're going to die for me, but you're going to glorify me by your death. And we actually know, church history says that Peter, when he was crucified, he asked to be crucified upside down because he wanted to honor Christ. And he's like, I'm not worthy to be crucified in the same manner as my Lord. And you think, man, what changed? Yeah. What changed? Yeah. And I'll tell you what changed. The resurrection of Jesus Christ completely changed Peter. Okay, guys, look, here's what's happening every year. You got your doctor's appointment trying to keep up with your overall health. Well, I'm doing the same thing. It's important to me because I want to be around for a long time. I got kids. Al, you got grandkids now. Jase, you got grandkids. You are a lot older than me.
My grandkids are getting married now, so I'm really getting older.
So you almost got great grandkids.
That's right.
But honestly, those checkouts, I get a little bit nervous these days. That's where these guys right here, Field of Greens, step in to give me a little extra confidence and boost that I need when I'm going into my doctor's appointment. There's really one simple lifestyle upgrade that we can all make, and that's Field of Greens. You can enjoy a delicious glass of this doctor-formulated Field of Greens each day, and you're going to feel amazing. Plus, your doctor will notice your improved health, or you get your money back. That's quite the promise there from these guys, and I've actually seen it. My blood work looks a lot better. And one Field of Greens customer actually said this, that it's the best blood work that I've had in a decade. My doctor said, whatever you're doing, keep it up. Another one said, for the first time in years, my cholesterol numbers are normal. And this mom said, after Field of Greens, my hair, nails, energy, and blood work all are better. How can a fruit and vegetable drink promise better health? Well, each fruit and vegetable in Field of Greens was doctor selected to support vital organs like your heart, your kidneys, liver, metabolism, immune system, and healthy blood cells. I've been taking this every day, and I feel steadier throughout the day. No more of those afternoon crashes. I sleep better. Just honestly, overall health improved. I take it every morning when I get up. Let's get you started with 20% off and free shipping. Visit fieldofgreens.com and use promo code unashamed. That's fieldofgreens.com, code unashamed.
He was not yet now, is the way I would put it, back in that first conversation. But then when you get to the end, he was yet now. He was ready to rock for the rest of his life.
Which was my entire point. I mean, look, I know I went off on a rant spending 2 podcasts over chickens, but I was in a chicken coma after laughing so hard for 6 hours reading all this junk. But my whole point was, when I look at the wild, I mean, my whole faith began when I just noticed the creation. I mean, my dad started taking us hunting because he was trying to be a better father, but I didn't know what all was going on in his life. I knew he had been transformed, but from my perspective, he's now taking us out in the wild, and I'm looking at all this life. I'm like, where did all this come from? Because, you know, when you're an outdoors enthusiast, it just seems like all these people who are writing these articles would look around and say, I'm not sure this happened randomly. There's too many details. There's too many colors. There's too many functions. All of this seems to be going along in harmony. And that was where I started noticing that there must be a creator by this design, but that life was the common element to all of that. And when you realize in the book of John, those 3 aspects that keep coming up as who God is, this light and life and love, I think you should analyze that. I think every time you hear a rooster crow, you should think something, not only his transformational process, but even the creature itself doing the crowing. How'd that get here on this earth? I mean, I think there's something
Paul,
to
but
that.
That's Paul's point. I mean, that's what Paul essentially says whenever he says the wrath of God's being revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who they by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. And he says this. He says, actually, for what you can actually see the character of God, his divine nature. It's clearly perceived by what has been made. So to your point, you're out there in creation. I mean, it's funny because Si always talks about feeling this way. which we try to show this in the movie, The Blind, which by the way is coming out. We're re-releasing that on the 31st. But so I always said Phil was worshiping the creation until he met the living God and the one who created the creation. And then his experience of that. But you could actually look at what's been made. I mean, according to Apostle Paul, for his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. Yeah. Think about that. You can look at what has been made, the physical universe, and the physical universe declares the glory and the character and the attributes and the nature of the God who made it. I think, man, that's like to the point where Paul says you can actually see it so clearly that's why you don't have an excuse. I've never read the Bible. Am I held accountable to the standard of God? Yes. Why? Because you can actually see it in the universe. You can actually see.
Which is why you would see indigenous groups of people that would have that were nowhere near a Bible, and yet they would talk about the Great Spirit. They would talk about all these things that what they realized out of what they saw in creation. There had to be something bigger. Than just themselves on the earth. I mean, it was just a natural thing. So, Jase, I will say, I know you got something else to say, but it's the whole time you've been doing this, I've been thinking it's just a chuckle in my mind because you have so channeled your inner Phil. Because we like to bring Dad up on the podcast because he's obviously still here with us in spirit in terms of this podcast. But he got on the kick about the year, how many years had Jesus, since he was here, the counting time. That was, remember, what his major
when he would ask Siri, what time is it in Red China?
Yeah, so he would he asked the same questions of AI in his own way, and he asked her if she was a believer. She said, "I'm not sure." Alexa. He said, and she said, "I'm not sure." And I said, "Well, what do you take from that, Dad?" And he said, "Al, I think the old gal's an atheist. That's what I think."
Now that would be a shirt. I baptized Alexa. Just take your computer and just baptize it. I mean, because I felt like last night I was encroaching on that, trying to convert by the lunacy that I was reading. But I wanted to just make one point. Zach, it was a good point when you brought up Romans 1:20. But what's fascinating about the human mind is that we, deep down, whether we believe in God or not, we acknowledge life and all these creatures and critters as something just wonderful. And just think about people who don't even believe that they're all about just looking at the life and analyzing it and giving, because I watched a number of videos, on how chickens got here. But I will say, most of them chuckled at their own theology on how it happened, because they would always default to, well, we're not really sure. I mean, I can give you a theory because it does. There's a lot of time blanks in the millions of years where it's just unexplainable. And I'm like, you think? I mean, it produced a chicken. But I wanted to read this Romans 1 right after that when he said, although, and he's talking about humans who are not glorifying God or giving thanks to the Creator, although they claim to be wise, this is verse 22 of chapter 1 of Romans, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like mortal man and birds and animals and reptiles. And even in verse 25, it's like, which it led to, sinful behavior, sexual immorality, etc. And then 25, it says, they exchanged the truth of God for a lie and worshiped and served created things rather than the Creator. And so it's like a trap. I mean, we all love animals and we have videos, but a lot of these videos I watch were for kids. And all this T-Rex stuff, and it used to be a chicken and all. I mean, they're teaching our kids this.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, there was no Creator. This is how this works. And I mean, they're doing it in little kids' voices, and I just thought, are you kidding me? This is what you're going with? And then the reason they're doing it for kids, because I don't think any rational thinking adult would buy this for a second, because it makes no sense.
No, I agree. And like Zach said, but only Jase could bring it out from this one text of the rooster. But it is true that when you look at this thing, just if you just boil it down to if there really is a creator, and if he happened to be here and was able to then articulate to us in everyday language, what would it look like? This is the kind of things that you would see that seem so practical and so real. And I thought it was interesting because this text began with him talking about being glorified, which is a definite look at both the resurrection of his body and then his ascension into heaven in a glorified body. Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt that's what he was talking about. And so to your point, Jase, with this kind of picture of the chicken and the egg, which I hadn't thought about in relationship to what he said there, but that's exactly what he does. You see this new transformation of life that now comes from him, the only one it could come from, by the way. He had to be part of the creator and creation process to then now have a body that was imperishable and yet still had the human qualities that we all have, and yet could literally defy gravity and do what we've dreamed about, Superman coming from Krypton, but we actually had it happen here on Earth. I mean, when you look at the idea of how he began this process before he even talked about Peter and his denial, he says, I'm going to be glorified. And that's exactly what he's talking about, and he's pointing them to that. But they're not seeing that. They don't know what that means in the moment. And I think, obviously once he's resurrected, they see that. But he does come back to that practical thing. It comes about love. And isn't it interesting, Zach, that you went to John 21, and the same thing Jesus said here in the moment of the prediction of the denial, he tells Peter 3 times what? Do you love me?
Yeah.
Do you love me? Do you love me? And he's already said, you'll only know you're to my disciples by your love for one another. And he asked him 3 different times, to the point where Peter's hurt, by the 3rd time. And he's trying to impress upon him that to love is to trust. And to trust is to do what I'm asking you to do. And that's exactly what, when Peter gets it, obviously he changes the whole world. So, Jase, late last year, I was making a decision that I was not healthy, and I was carrying way too much weight. As Dad would say lovingly, Al, when you can't fit through the door, it may be time to do something. And so
he also said, Al, way too many honey buns.
He did. I found out that 80% of dropping weight comes from what you eat. And I know that sounds like a kind of a duh moment, but it's true. And Dr. Ashley Lucas, who's the founder of PhD Weight Loss, is the person that really helped me understand it. The program teaches you what to eat, when to eat, but it also teaches you how to have this relationship with food where you can keep the weight off for the rest of your life. Here's a picture of me at the beginning, 31 weeks ago, not very appealing. Here I am now, all these months later, looking much better. Also, my health is so much better. I'm taking half of the blood pressure meds I was, and I'm expecting next month to get off of that completely. So it's helped me. There's no gimmicks. There's no pills, no side effects, no shots. I'm not eating rabbit food. I'm staying full. It's a high-protein diet, low carb, so it keeps you feeling more full. And PhD provides 80% of the food you're going to eat every week at no extra cost to you. So I want you to check it out. I know you've been thinking about it. Now's the time to jump in and do it. Join me on my weight loss journey. Schedule your one-on-one consultation today by calling 864-644-1900, or you can visit myphdweightloss.com. That's 864-644-1900. Tell them Al Robertson sent you.
Yeah, it's interesting too when you think about Peter, particularly if you think about that glorification aspect that comes later, right? So I love to, for me, it's helpful to view salvation in like a 3-pronged approach. One is our justification. We're made right with God. I'm freed from the penalty of sin. I stand guilty before holy God. I'm freed from that through the blood of Jesus. And then progressively, we're released from the power of sin, the grip that it has on us. Yeah, that's our sanctification. And so you're pointing to this idea of glorification. That's like the final consummation of the kingdom. That's the not yet part of the kingdom, right? Yeah. It's not fully here, right? Well, one day we're going to be free from the presence of sin. And so with Peter, it's a great example of this, that he goes from the guy who is denying Christ 3 times to ultimately the guy who will die for Christ, being hung upside down if tradition is correct. But post-resurrection of Jesus, Peter encountering, this risen Jesus, he obviously had grown in his maturity. He had been sanctified. He had written like actual parts of the Bible that we now actually read. He was an apostle. He did a lot upon this confession that Peter made. Christ said he built his church. But even like post all of that, what's interesting about it to me, and it gives you the idea that none of us are in the state of glorification in that sense yet, where we're freed from the presence of sin. Peter still struggled with sin, even post resurrection, because if you go back and read Galatians, that part where Paul says he rebuked Peter?
Yeah, right.
He said, I rebuked Peter when I saw that he was not acting in line with the truth of the gospel. And that has always given me so much comfort, because I'm like, I've been a Christian for, however long, 25, 30 years, and I'm not there. Like, I still have sin in my life. I still fall. I still fall into old habits, old patterns, old behaviors, resentments, gossip, all the things. And I'm like, man, you know what, though? So did the apostle Peter. As he was an acting apostle, there was still inside the group of apostles, there was accountability to the point where he fell, and he was treating people differently based on if they were Jewish or not. And Paul said, "That ain't gonna happen," and actually rebuked him to his face. And not only did he rebuke him to his face, then he also wrote about it in the letter to the Galatian church. Hey, when I saw that Peter wasn't doing this, hey, I told him to his face what was up. And I don't know, that gives me comfort, but it gives me hope that one day it's going to that thing we're longing for.
Yeah, I think you see that in how this played out. I mean, you have John 13, and just put this in your head. Jesus does the most beautiful thing imaginable in revealing why he's here by washing their feet.
Yep.
And then it leads to the literal betrayal and an acknowledgement that one of the other followers is going to deny him 3 times. And then the next section that we're going to get through, 14 through 16, he starts introducing this idea that he's going to leave, and he's going to leave his Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Well, you fast forward to the story, and when you get to Acts 1, Jesus' last words, you're fixed to receive the Holy Spirit. And then what happens? In verse 17, or in verse 15, Peter stood up. Now, this is post-resurrection. We have the conversation about the Spirit being poured out on him. And he says, brothers, verse 16 of Acts 1, the Scripture had to be fulfilled with the Holy Spirit spoke long ago through the mouth of David. All of a sudden, he's become a little more of a leader here. Yeah. And he's saying, Judas, who served as a guide for those who arrested Jesus, he was in our ministry. And then they tell what happened to Judas, and it's very graphic. Judas bought a field. He fell headlong. His body burst open, and all his intestines spilled out, which is where his betrayal led.
Yeah.
And then the Holy Spirit falls on all those in that room in Acts 2. And guess what? In verse 14, here's old Peter, post-denial, post-resurrection, post-Jesus welcoming him back in, giving him the charge. He stood up and raised his voice, and he delivered the first Jesus sermon post-Jesus going to the Father and the Holy Spirit being poured out, and 3,000 people responded.
It's pretty powerful. And, we mentioned, I think it was in the last podcast, I mentioned about Dad using the Acts 10 passage, which is Peter being prompted in Acts 10 to go and preach that same message to a Gentile audience who happened to be Cornelius, who was a Roman, centurion, and then seeing that same thing happen twice. And as Zach said, he still had some prejudice that he carried into, his Christian walk, but Peter got to be the first one, even though Paul was the primary Gentile conversion guy, in his ministry. But Peter got to be the first one to preach to the Jews and the first one to preach to the Gentiles, which, what an honor when we think about that. And yet that came out of the moment of a 3-time denial on the actual night. I mean, it really does give you a lot of hope.
Yeah,
that you can recover from anything.
So my whole last point about the chicken is the next time you see a chicken, eat a chicken, or hear a chicken, stand up and do the right thing. Start talking about Jesus.
That'll preach right there, son. That will preach.
Well, I love it that Jase, I always said his unique perspective on things. I have taught this passage. I have read this thousands of times. I never considered the chicken in the context of this, and yet you're right. Now that I see this, I can't unsee it. That the creator of the universe brought it up in this moment. Which was a big deal. A couple of things. We're going to take a break. We have a guest on. It's really interesting because we've been talking something about nutrition. I can't wait to hear what she thinks about chicken.
I will bet that whatever she says, that a chicken is very beneficial.
That's what. We're going to find out.
For looking at, for listening to, and for ingesting.
So, Zach, starting next week, we're going to be releasing the Unashamed podcast on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
And then on Fridays, starting the 29th of August, we're going to have our first Hillsdale. So tell them about what that's called and where they can get to it.
Yeah, it's called Unashamed Academy, powered by Hillsdale. It's a free course, no ads, by the way, which is great because it's just like straight up and we're going through the book of Genesis. With the younger, as Jase calls them, the Duck Boys, or I guess they call themselves the Duck Boys. We got a couple of the Duck Boys on, me and Al. Yeah. We're going to be going through it every Friday. So you sign up for free. You can take the course with us for free. They're like 20, 25 minutes, 30 minutes long tops. They're really good. So if you want to get a little deeper dive in the book of Genesis, we're going to do 6 of these, and then we're going to probably move on to something else after that. But we're going to do 6 sessions on the book of Genesis. You can go to unashamedforhillsdale.com and sign up and check it all out. It's all free. No ads, all free. It's going to be awesome.
And we want you to take the course with us because that's what we did, and we learned a lot. And so we're excited about having those conversations. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back from this break, we got a guest. We're going to talk about some nutritional value, and we're going to ask about the chicken.
Just got back from a camp. I told you about that, correct?
Yeah, you did. And it reminded me, Zach, about how important summer camps are and how many people have been impacted, including us.
Jesus told his followers to go and make disciples of all nations, and that's exactly what the Tomorrow Clubs are doing. I want to tell you about 17-year-old Diana, who is making disciples in a small village in Moldova. 6 years ago, she came to a tent where the local Tomorrow Clubs was meeting, and that's where she found Jesus for the first time. And now, as a leader in that same club where her life was transformed, Diana is actually helping to bring other kids in her village to learn to follow Jesus. The Tomorrow Clubs lines up directly with the vision of what we believe in here at Unashamed: long-term discipleship relationships, partnering with local churches, and then raising up the next generation of faith. So here's what we're asking. We're asking our Unashamed audience, you guys, to join this disciple-making movement by sponsoring 30 Tomorrow Club kids for just $30 a month. 30 disciples for $30 a month. It's easy to get started. Just visit tomorrowclubs.org/unashamed or text 30 kids to 44321. That's 30 kids to 44321. Let's help this great ministry reach more kids in some of the world's most forsaken places. Visit tomorrowclubs.org/unashamed or simply text 30 kids, that's 30 kids, to 44321 today to become a Tomorrow Clubs ministry partner.
We have one of our favorite people. We've had her on before. Kim Bright is back in Unashamed Nation. Kim, welcome back to the podcast.
Great to be back. I'm blessed to be back. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll let Zach tell you a little bit more about her connection to our podcast and being a partner with us. But I have to ask you something. This is breaking news, Kim. So we've just spent 2 podcasts with Jase, because we were in the text in the Bible that talk about the rooster crowing 3 times before Peter denied Christ. And so Jase, being Jase, went on a deep dive into chickens. And so,
oh, gosh.
So we spent 2 podcasts talking about the value of chicken. And I said, well, look, we have a nutritional expert, a person we trust deeply in Unashamed Nation. And so we've got to find out how you feel about chickens, because that's been a big discussion around here. So take it away. What is your thought on
chickens? I had chickens at my farm. I had 11 chickens and a rooster. I love them. They're good. Go out and get the fresh eggs, but feed them right. Don't feed them junk. Because you're going to get junky eggs if you feed them junk.
Garbage in, garbage out.
That's right, Zach. That's
you know, it's interesting, Kim, because, when Lisa and I started getting healthier and eating better and having better gut health, which is a lot of what your product is about, we realized that the fresher the egg we ate, and we know the people that are farming our chickens too, because they're friends, actually family, the better off that we feel after. I mean, not only are they more delicious and more tender because they're fresh, but we've had much less gut issues than we do with some of the things we just bought in the grocery store. That's
all based on their food. And you have a better, deeper orange color with the good eggs that you've raised naturally. Let them run free in the pastures, get those bugs, get what they're, God intended for them to eat. That's the true of all our food.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well,
that's why we love partnering with you guys. Kimchi One's actually got some right here, by the way. You guys are, just full disclosure, one of our sponsors. One of the things that we've been wanting to do as a podcast is really highlighting the products and things that we're using that actually that are helping us. And I'm a big fan of kimchi. We were kind of joking about that. Not joking. I was telling you before. I love to eat kimchi, but the problem is you can't eat it every day. Then you hate it. You know what I mean? Because not everybody likes it either. But the health benefits really are just incredible. What you get from taking this fermented product with gut health. And I wanted to talk to you about this because I spent I don't know if you know this, Kim, that I spent 15 years working in the pharmaceutical industry. And I sold a lot of antidepressants. I know all about mental health. And over the years, it's one of the reasons why I came across your product, is I became convinced that so much of what we think is mental health disorders are actually issues of the gut. And I don't know if I'm sure you've kind of researched that as well and have a lot of thoughts on it. I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on how much of that's kind of interconnected.
It's totally interconnected. It starts in the gut health is what keeps us healthy or what makes us sick. And we have direct access, communication from the gut to the brain, from the gut to the skin. So if you have skin problems, if you have brain problems, if you have nervous problems, your nervous system, heart problems, all that's connected to gut health, Zach. Because if you've got an imbalance of the good guys in your gut, and you've got overgrowth of what God put there to return your body when you're dying back to the earth, the bad microbes, the bad bacteria, the viruses, the parasites, the molds, the yeast, those all tear our bodies down. And when you get an overabundance of those going on in your body, you're going to have problems with your brain, with your emotions, and you're going to get depressed because those things have very vile things that come out of them. And so not only are they vile, but then they've got vile excretions that are going to really tear your health down.
So how did you come across like this idea of getting kimchi in a capsule, and maybe explain to our audience too, like, what is kimchi and why is that what you're recommending and what a lot of people have recommended for treating gut health?
Well, for me, I've been doing this for almost 50 years, helping people and with their health. And I found out very early on with my own health that big pharma is not the way to go. You get looped into that whole system of you don't take care of yourself, you don't eat right, then you're back, you go to the doctor. The doctors, I used to lecture to doctors 40 years ago. None of them have nutrition backgrounds at all. They didn't have any education, and it wasn't even an elective. So the whole thing here is that people don't know better. They go to their doctor. The doctor doesn't know about nutrition in your gut. Your doctor's going to look at symptoms. He's then going to write you a script because that's how he was trained. Identify the symptom, write a script out for pills. And then when you come back 3 or 4 weeks later and you've got a different symptom, now you're on that train. Now you're going to get another prescription. Pretty soon you're on 10 prescriptions. You're doing nothing to look at what caused it, where the problem was caused. You're looking at us changing symptoms into another symptom. So I researched so many diets across the world to find out who lived the longest, who had the healthiest guts, the healthiest bones, the healthiest everything. And I found out that a centuries-old food called kimchi was the king of fermented foods, and that fermented foods is what fed our good gut microbiome guys, our good bacteria. Now, we've got in the South, we've got things like chow chow, we've got sauerkraut, homemade pickles. Those are all great. Y'all eat those, but they don't have the over 900 unique strains of probiotics. That's for life, the good guys. They don't have those over 900 unique strains. And so that's why I loved kimchi so much. It's the king of fermented foods, and it's loaded with fiber. That's what feeds the probiotics, the good guys. And so I saw when I canceled people, I canceled over 15,000 people. I saw they all had gut issues just about. And I would teach them to make kimchi and other fermented foods, but they were like, oh my gosh, I can't stand this smell. I'm not going to make this. I'm not going to eat it.
My wife won't let me. She will not let me eat it in the house, because if you open
it stinks the house.
No, it does, and it'll stick around for a while. So.
Yeah, it hangs around.
Yeah.
But so I thought, how can I get these great benefits in people?
Yeah.
And so that's why we came up with a way to maintain all of those benefits, to make sure that it was natural, non-GMO, made in the USA. And the other thing, when you make homemade kimchi or you buy it from the store in the refrigerator section, it's loaded with sodium. And a lot of people are dealing with issues where they can't eat sodium, high sodium foods. So we take all that out. We take all the salt out, so you don't have to be concerned with that. And so that's why we decided, let's put it in a capsule.
It's so funny because on the pharmaceutical discussion, we've had Dr. Daniel Amen. Are you familiar with him at all? The Amen Clinics, he's a psychiatrist. We've had him on our podcast before.
Oh,
Brilliant.
Yes, Dr. Amen. Yes, I am. Yes.
And he's done so much work, and even talking about like what you just said about how he's more focused in psychiatric medicine, but how everything is treated as like a group of symptom clusters, and no one is ever looking at the underlying disease, which he also says nutrition and what we eat is a big part of that, right? Right. For me, it was like full circle for me. Yeah, you'll find this interesting. This is when I realized I'm in the wrong industry. After 15 years of doing it, I'd worked with some very well-known biotech companies, pharmaceutical companies that are household names now. And the last product I sold, or wrapped, if you will, was a new treatment for a disease caused by the drugs that I previously sold. And I thought,
there you go.
So at the very least, it's like if you have these issues, I'm like, start with just try to fix your gut. The overprescription of antibiotics, we're stripping our guts of all these really good bacteria, and bacteria is not always a bad thing. We got to have them to live on. In fact,
Zach, when you use antibiotics, that's against life, antibiotic against life, and it kills everything, the bad guys and the good guys. And then you don't put good guys back in, the bad guys come back, they go into overgrowth.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. In fact, my Aunt Kay, Al's mom, she's several times been hospitalized for C. diff and things that, like, you think about, well, what's actually happening here. So we're big proponents of what you're doing.
We have people, they call us up, they write us, and they say, I had so much bloating. I had so much gas coming out of both ends. I had, I just was miserable. And within days, that went away for me. I had improved digestion. We've had people that go to the bathroom, once or twice a week. They're regular. We've got people that were obese. They're calling in saying, my pants are falling off. What's going on? And because it actually reduces your waistline because it's getting rid of the bad guys. And people say they don't get sick as much. They've got stronger immune systems. And there's actually 2 testimonials I'd like to read. One is from Jennifer that says, my husband and I both love this stuff. We feel better. We've got more energy. It makes you regular. I've already lost 6 pounds since starting and don't feel as bloated as I used to. And Leroy says, I've dealt with autoimmune flare-ups for almost all of my life, but since taking the Kimchi One, my symptoms have calmed down and I never get sick anymore. Absolutely life-changing. So, we've got to take care of this temple that God gave us to house the Holy Spirit, and you start in your gut.
What most people that take this, what are they calling in for? What are the issues that they're having that would even lead them to consider taking something like this?
They're calling in because they've heard me somewhere.
Yeah.
Or, they've seen me on TV shows that I do or heard me on radio shows. And so they're already a little educated on, oh, I need this because I have all these problems. I have, if you're having heart problems, it's connected to your gut. You have diabetes, it's connected to your gut. If you have obesity, it's connected to the gut health. Those guys down in the gut are so important that we take care of them. It's just like our soil. If you don't feed your soil right, your plants are going to be sick. And the chickens that eat the grass and the plants and the cows that eat that, they're going to be sick. And then we eat them. So we have to take care of our microbiome in our gut as well as our microbiome in our soil.
So Kim, thank you for bringing it back to chickens. I just have to say,
gotta bring it back to the chickens. Gotta bring it back.
We gotta
to the
go
chickens.
round into the
so
chickens.
Zach, tell about how to get the product because we got to wrap it up.
Well, you got 2 things here. I want to encourage you. You get 25% off your order of Kimchi One today by using code unashamed at mybrightcore.com/unashamed, or is what I would recommend. You can call in for up to 50% off and free shipping at 888-404-9677. You're an educator. I think if they call in, they're going to get more benefit.
We've got a staff that's educated, and we like to talk to people, and we like to make sure it's right for them and answer questions. So, and, if they call us at 888-404-9677, we're going to incentivize them. They get up to 50% off and free shipping. And I'll even throw in a free bottle of vitamin D3 for the first 100 callers.
There you go, guys. You heard it there.
So it's awesome. Kim, we'd love having you on the podcast. We're going to have you on. You are a gut nutrition expert, and we love having you on to talk about ways to make us healthier. So thank you for coming back. Thank you for partnering with the Unashamed podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Unashamed podcast. Help us out by leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And don't miss an episode by subscribing on YouTube. And be sure to click the little bell and choose all notifications to watch every episode.